Hello. Now, what do you think the difference might be between the demonstrations held by one group of people to protest about the ubiquity of iniquitous CO2, which is, according to the MSM, the single most evil substance destroying the world? No, we don't have to worry about water vapour, pollution and ideological conflicts. It's just CO2, folks. Remember that. But I'm getting sidetracked. What's the difference between those guys and the demonstrations held by another group to protest about the undisguised injustice meted out to Tommy Robinson, who is, according to the MSM, the single most evil man destroying British society? And we don't need to worry about rape gangs and police corruption and fascism in the Labour Party. It's just Tommy Robinson, folks. Well, I'll tell you one thing. First off, one of the biggest differences was that there were no drums and the Tommy Robinson demos, although I do remember that one of them, there was a set of bagpipes. Bagpipes! It's the only musical instrument that's out of tune with itself. Anyway, I'm still getting sidetracked. I'll get back to Tommy Robinson in a minute or two. Meanwhile, this is Extinction Rebellion shutting down central London.
We would rather not be taking this action.
Those drums again. They say they're going to be doing that for the next 2 weeks, and they say it's for the environment. But what they're actually doing is rebelling against the people of London, who want to go to work, unlike them, who want to live their lives and earn their money and go home in the evening to watch television and shout at their families. Now, don't you think it a bit odd that suddenly this hysteria seems to have gripped Britain at the same time as the Brexit row rumbles on? And MPs are in direct rebellion against not only their government, but against the people who actually voted for them. Some of them, I might add, being the ones who are presently inconvenienced by Extinction Rebellion. I don't suggest that the two are connected, by the way, in any physical way. But what I do suggest is that the two things are coming out of the same impulse. That is, the political classes don't trust the people and are taking less and less notice of them, while the governed classes don't trust the political classes, and so feel that the only way they can vent their fury or air their concerns is by demonstrating. I'm sure that many of the participants on the Extinction Rebellion demos are genuinely worried about what they think of as the climate crisis. Personally, I think they're shooting at the wrong targets, and that even when they're going after the wrong targets, they're doing it the wrong way, but that's another matter. However, I truly believe that many of the people are on those marches not so much because of a climate change, but simply out of a vague feeling of distrust, frustration with democracy. And so they should be frustrated. And you know what? You know how I think the whole thing started off? I told you that right at the beginning. It didn't start with Greta Thunberg's histrionics. It didn't even start with the Brexit row. It started with the marches in support of Tommy Robinson when he was imprisoned last year. Because although probably most of the people shutting down London right now have no sympathies whatsoever with the aforementioned enemy of the state, the same thing is happening to them as what happened to the Tommy Robinson supporters. That is, they feel strongly about something and they know that the government isn't responding, and here Well, in fact, the government's suffering from a bit of karma because they put out the Robinson single-sided narrative supported by their minions in the MSN and forced a lot of bald men waving flags out onto the streets. However, now the MSM are putting out a single-sided narrative about CO2, another group of people are out in force causing trouble, and a lot more trouble than the Robinson lot ever caused, by the looks of things. Those eco warriors might have had no sympathy for Robinson, but they did learn from it. They learned that the only thing to do is to take some sort of mass action, because it's obvious democracy isn't working, or rather, it's being subverted. And of course, it's not only here. In France, people are being killed by the police or the gendarmerie for their feelings that they have no democratic way of expressing themselves. In Canada, reporters for the rebel media are being excluded from political debates that are meant to be public meetings. And I do remember that an old lady who criticised Trudeau was roughed up by the police. It was quite awful, actually, and they didn't mind being photographed, and they arrested her. That was a few months ago. I think they apologised later, but that doesn't change what happened. In America, the Democratic Party are attacking the political process with, well, questionable legal tactics to try to dislodge an elected president, while in Britain the left have learnt that lesson and are trying similar tactics over here with Boris Johnson. And all of this seems to me to be different aspects of the same disease. Symptoms of a change in the way our society works. It's all the fault of the internet, of course, and I have mentioned this before. Printed matter became widely available in Europe in the 16th century, and by the beginning of the 17th century, newspapers, the internet of the time, were causing all sorts of mayhem. The result was the 30 Years' War, a vicious, hugely destructive conflict that started as a war between Catholic and Protestant spheres of influence and ended up as a simple struggle for power. It probably cost the lives of 8 million people. That's a lot of people, and not only soldiers, not only ordinary civilians, but there was famine as well, because when you have a war going on, you can't plant crops. Or if you do, you're in danger of having your entire harvest appropriated by the next invading army. So there was mass starvation, and that always means mass disease as well. Now, what's happening to the Western world now actually reminds me of that. I'm not forecasting war and plague. I honestly don't think it'll come to that, because I don't think our modern systems would like it very much. But it could still cause mass dislocation and a lot of adjustment before we settle down, I hope, peacefully. But actually, I'm not that hopeful that it will be all that painless. I think we're in for a prolonged period of instability and worse, doubt. Because it's always tougher when we can't trust our governments or our information sources. I mentioned this before, and I used the term civil war. and I've been interested to see that Tim Pool has recently started using that same language. He used the word civil war. In the last video, I saw that he did. I think we can honestly say we're living in in what the Chinese referred to as interesting times. We're at the beginnings of a different sort of society, being born out of a new information age. And in the end, we're going to have to decide on new ways of governing ourselves as well. But as with previous upheavals, I don't think that's going to happen painlessly. Well, that's it. If you want to donate or contact, the information will be rolling over the Graniopteryx as I speak. Please like, subscribe and share, because it does help with the algorithm. If you visit my channel on YouTube and one day discover that I've disappeared without warning, you'll still find me on BitChute or Minds. Just go to either of those platforms and do a search for Graniopteryx. If you're already watching this on BitChute or Minds, good for you. Meanwhile, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember that you must keep checking the subscribe and bell icons because occasionally they reset. Till next time.